We all know Franz Wagner, Moe Wagner, and Germany don't back down, and the U.S. knows it too. What we learned from Germany's narrow loss to the U.S., plus the pressure on Franz Wagner as the Olympics begin. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 22nd. It will be July 23rd, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, Germany falls 92-88 to the U.S. in a very narrow defeat. Why the Wagner brothers of Germany showed they're not going to back down, and why we already know that about them as we get ready for the Olympics. We'll also talk a little bit about the pressure on Franz Wagner and the questions he needs to answer as Germany goes for the gold. And because we are based here in the U.S., I will talk about what is up with Team USA. We'll get to all of that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. With the playoffs completely over, with Summer League completely over, with the Olympics beginning, sports aren't quite the same. But the NBA is right around the corner, and FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily this summer. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Big game. Big game in international basketball. It is a big week in international basketball because the final friendlies are taking place before the Olympics. That's right. International basketball is back. We all love our FIBA summers, and FIBA summer is officially here. The U.S. has played 5 exhibition games. Germany has played their share of exhibition games as well. These are, in my opinion at least, your 2 favorites to win the gold. I know France is at home, and they've got Victor Wembanyama, they've got Rudy Gobert, they got Evan Fournier, FIBA Fournier, as we all know. Yes, Serbia is still hanging around. Bogdan Bogdanovic, if he's healthy. Nikola Jokic, the silver medalist at the World Cup last year. Greece is still hanging around. Australia is still hanging around. It's going to be an intense Olympic competition. And obviously, we will be focused very keenly on both the U.S. We are a U.S. podcast, as well as Moe and Franz Wagner on Germany. And so, essentially, we got something of a gold medal preview on Monday in London. And yes, Franz Wagner coming off of a 27-point performance against Japan on Friday. We all saw that and we're like, that's great. But it's Japan. No offense to the Japanese. No offense to the Japan national team. It's Japan. We all wanted to see, how would Franz elevate his game, especially how would Franz elevate his game against the U.S.? We wanted to see whether Germany could stand up to this U.S. team. I was watching the game. It was close throughout, obviously a 92-88 game. LeBron James had to score 11 points in the final 4 minutes to ensure the U.S. got the win, had a big 5-point scoring run that turned a tie game into a comfortable win for or not a comfortable win, but for a win with some margin for the U.S. Obviously, he had the big game-winning shot against South Sudan on Saturday. We'll get to that a little bit later. But we all wanted to see how this German team would stand up to a different U.S. team. A team that is not the team that they sent to the World Cup. A team with veteran players, with some elite players like Joel Embiid and LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo and Steph Curry and all those players. And Devin Booker and Jason Tatum and Drew Holiday. It's a lot of really good basketball players. We want to see how Germany would stand up to this team because, frankly, half the battle when you're facing the U.S. is standing up to the star power, is not being enamored with the depth, not being enamored with the skill and all that, because the U.S. is trying to intimidate you. They're trying to overwhelm you with talent because they don't have the experience and cohesion as a team. They're betting that when they go on their spurts, that they will bury you and demoralize you and dismantle you. Well, as proof of concept, they didn't win the game. They didn't beat the U.S. in a friendly before the World Cup last year either. Germany showed us, and the Wagner brothers especially showed us, they will not back down. Like I said, Team USA, very talented team, still the heavy favorites to win the gold. It's going to take a heck of an effort to beat them. But we're seeing increasingly in these tournaments that the margin for error is not that wide. The gap between these teams is not wide. And the U.S. is going to have to figure out we've got to actually build a team rather than just sending talent over and expecting them to win. They're probably still going to get away with it because they're really good. But Germany showed us that they're not backing down. And we saw that early on in the second quarter. And when it looked like the U.S. was about to run and hide, when Germany had to sit Dennis Schroeder, had to sit Franz Wagner, take some of their star players out, and the U.S. can just replenish their roster with talent, Germany found a way to stay in the game. And a lot of that is because of Moe Wagner. Moe Wagner did in this game, scoring 12 points and grabbing 7 rebounds. He did in this game what he does for the Orlando Magic all the time. He set hard screens, rolled hard to the basket, finished at the rim, did not back down from anybody, got in people's faces, got under people's skin, did not give an inch. And we've seen with the Magic how that affects everybody, how that makes everybody better. This is who the Magic are. This is who Moe Wagner is, and this is who Germany is. And once Germany was able to withstand that initial run and climb their way back into the game, it was a game. And very, very clearly, I think Germany wanted to treat this like a friendly. They didn't want to have to overextend their roster. But when the opportunity to beat Team USA became apparent, Germany tightened their rotations and they went for it. This game was a statement of intent. And Germany told the U.S., we're not backing down. And that was the same thing for Franz Wagner. We're going to talk more specifically about Franz here in a minute, but Franz led Germany with 18 points. A good chunk of that, I believe 12 of that in the second half. The U.S. put a major focus on him. They were not giving him any breathing room. They were not letting him get downhill to the basket. And Franz struggled to shoot. Not going to deny that. Not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. Franz missed his fair share of shots. Going, I believe, 6 for 17 in the game. Let me just double check my stats here real fast. Team high 18.7 rebounds. He missed his fair share of shots. But he still kept coming at them. He hit the big step back 3. I know everyone cares about that. He hit the big step back 3 to open the second half and set the tone for Germany in the second half when it felt like the U.S. could run away with things. He kept attacking and finding his way into the paint, absorbing contact from Anthony Davis, absorbing contact from Joel Embiid. This is how everyone has to play the U.S., to be honest. And this is how Franz Wagner has to play too. They did not back down in this game. And it's a friendly, so it's not the end of the world that they lost. It's a statement of intent. They're in this thing. They're not going to be afraid of this U.S. team. And the U.S. now has a shot across the bow in 2 games in London, especially to say, y'all might have Hall of Fame talent, but you're not a Hall of Fame team yet. And that's going to make for a very interesting Olympics. Germany did not back down. And right now, you have to consider that the U.S. is still the heavy favorite to win the gold medal. But Germany is very capable of stealing it from them. Of course, we are very concerned about Germany because not only they have Franz and Moe Wagner, they have assistant coach Brett Brielmaier. We're all Germany fans here. We want the U.S. to win, probably a little bit more. Maybe not. I don't know. I was watching the Germany game, very conflicted. I was more cheering for Franz and Moe in that instance. I don't know. But obviously, it was a rough season for Franz. It was an interesting season. I want to say rough season. Interesting season for Franz Wagner. The pressure of what he has to show in the Olympics, we'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, be sure to switch on over to the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports from our local experts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Think of it as watching ESPN, except instead of just having the national writers who only care about the national stories or just dip into some local stories, you have someone who knows the story they're talking about intimately because it is the team they cover exclusively. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I get this a lot when I've talked about Franz Wagner this summer. And I'm not, you don't need to come jump in the comments and say it again. Like I'm acknowledging the existence of this argument. A lot of Magic fans did not want Franz Wagner to play for Team Germany this summer. They wanted him to get in the gym and work on his jumper, especially. They wanted him to get off his feet, take a break, take a mental break, especially because he's been going pretty much nonstop since his rookie year, I would say. Eurobasket to, playing Eurobasket, the rookie season to Eurobasket to second season to World Cup to third season to Olympics. It's been a lot. And next summer, when there are no international basketball tournaments to play, Franz Wagner is going to get that break. It is on the horizon here. But undoubtedly, yes, Franz Wagner's played a lot of basketball, playing in a major tournament every summer. As I've said before, I fully support players playing for their national teams. It is an incredible honor. It is something that's very, very important to these players. I would not tell Franz Wagner to give up the opportunity to win a gold medal for anything. I would not ask him to do that. I would not ask him to give up winning the World Cup and being part of the first Germany team to win the World Cup. This is a very special thing. It matters to these players, and you want to be support. I am supportive of that. You're on your feet playing basketball. You're playing pickup. I would honestly rather a player play with a team, with a staff, with a medical staff, with that team. The Magic probably have a medical staff. Brett Brielmaier is an assistant coach with the Orlando Magic. He's an assistant coach on the German national team. The Magic have someone with him. I would rather than play organized basketball like this than be out on their own if they're going to play. And they're going to play. So it's always, I think, a good thing to be in this atmosphere, in this environment. Even if you're not playing the role you would play, and Franz is playing the role he would play for the Magic, you're learning something you can bring back home. And plus, the Magic season ended May 5th. They probably got together July 7th or July 5th or whatever it was. They've had 2 months to work on their game before they play these games. And on top of this, the FIBA tournaments are later in the summer. They're usually late August, early September. We're dealing with a late July to early August tournament. I believe the Olympics end on August 10th or 11th or 12th, somewhere in there. He will have a full 6 weeks before training camp. Really, probably even more, 7 weeks before training camp to be ready for the season. I am not worried about that at all in this instance. But undoubtedly, after the season Franz Wagner had, this Olympics feels big. Not just because Germany does have a real chance to medal, to win a silver medal, a gold medal, whatever it is. They have a real chance to do well in this tournament. They should, honestly, it will be disappointing if Germany does not medal in this tournament. That's how good that team is. But we're obviously focused in thinking about Franz Wagner in a different way. We all know the struggles Franz Wagner had last year. It was a career season across the board, except for his three-point shooting, which dipped to 28.1%. And, of course, the Game 7 showing when he shot just 1 for 15, an all-time worst Game 7 performance. There's no denying that. Not even Franz would deny that. There is a lot of noise about Franz Wagner, especially because his last basketball game, he shot 1 for 15, scored 6 points in that Game 7, and then he signed a max contract. Look, I'm not going to sit here and debate whether Franz is a max player or not. I firmly believe that he would have gotten there this season. I firmly believe that if the Magic believe he is a max player, there is no sense in waiting. And if they don't believe he's a max player, then you might as well start fishing around and trading for him now. You either believe in him or you don't. And the Magic clearly believe in him. What Franz Wagner has to do is silence the noise around him. He has to prove on a meaningful stage, because this is competitive basketball. This isn't going to a pickup gym, or, no offense to the Drew League, playing in the Drew League or at the crossover at some pro-am. This is playing on a big stage, under pressure, for something meaningful, for a trophy. You don't test your skills, you don't test your improvement unless you're playing under these circumstances. And Franz Wagner is going to play under these huge, huge circumstances, these huge implications. Franz has shown us that there's still work to do. He started the summer 0 for 7 from 3 in the first 2 exhibitions. He shot 3 of 5 against Japan in a 27.8 rebound effort where he just dominated the game and took over in the third quarter to make that thing a laugher. He shot 2 for 5 to score his 18 points in Monday's game against Japan. So he's 5 of his last 10 3-pointers. But there's still clearly work to do. And while it's one thing to do it against Japan, who Germany, by the way, will play Saturday at 7:30 in the morning here on the East Coast. It's one thing to do it against Japan. It's another thing to do it against the U.S. And his struggles a little bit with his shot in Monday's game does suggest there is still work to do. Now, look, Franz's bread and butter is always going to be attacking the basket. His ability to create space, to use his body and his strength to create space, get to the rim, finish strong at the rim. That is always what he's about. The U.S. put a huge focus in Monday's game to take away that space that he loves to drive into, to try and keep him from getting downhill and getting ahead of steam. Germany was running him off screens and giving him dribble handoffs to get him the ball in motion so that he could get downhill quicker. And the U.S. did, especially early on in the game, a very good job blocking that out, keeping him on the perimeter. And in many respects, the challenge for Germany was, how do we get Franz involved? And they did that by essentially making him a decoy, by allowing the defense to focus on him and freeing up Andreas Obst or freeing up their other three-point shooters. That's the kind of connectivity that Franz brings. But as Magic fans, as people who are Franz Wagner fans, we want to see him take another step in this game. We want to see him become a more reliable three-point shooter, a more reliable creator. And as we begin to watch this tournament, as we begin to watch Germany in their quest to win the gold medal, we will be keeping an eye on how Franz performs. I watched the game Friday against Japan. And it very much felt like a vintage Franz Wagner game, where Franz was able to create a lot for himself, was able to get downhill and beat up on smaller defenders. It was a game where Franz was excellent on defense, like really good. Locking down Rui Hachimura and taking away one of the big factors for that Japanese team. He was that way Monday. Great defensively on Devin Booker. Maybe he lost LeBron a few times when he got matched up on him, but he had 3 steals in the game. And they're all position steals. He was all in the right spot to get the ball. But we all want to see Franz make some threes. And to do it in pressure situations, yes, a different ball, yes, a different three-point line, yes, a different game and a different team. But we all want to see Franz take the step that we know the Magic need him to take. And that is where things start. There is pressure on Franz Wagner to begin answering some of the questions we have about him. Because he's really good. And he will be really good in the regular season, whether he's shooting 35% from 3 or 30% from 3. But we obviously want to see more. We obviously want to see him be the player we know he needs to be against elite competition. And that's going to be the challenge of the Olympics for Franz Wagner. We are a U.S.-based team, so let's take a look at things from the U.S. perspective. What's up with Team USA after 2 rough games in London? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Look, I love sports. We all love sports. You're listening to a sports podcast right now. Of course you love sports. And the summer can feel a little dry for sports. Yeah, we got MLS. We got our girls, the Orlando Pride, and the NWSL. We got Major League Baseball, if that's your thing. But it's not the same. Not until the NFL and college football come back. Not until the NBA is finally back in October. Well, with FanDuel, they let you keep the sports going whenever you want this summer. All you have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. In fact, FanDuel just recently posted their NBA futures, their over-under win totals. You can get the Magic at over-under 47.5 wins, essentially just saying, will the Magic have a better record this year than they did last year? That's the fun part. They're also the betting favorites right now on FanDuel to win the Southeast Division, and they're 5th in the odds to win the Eastern Conference, I believe at plus 2,000. So interesting little bet there if you think the Magic are going to the finals this year. So head over to FanDuel.com right now and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We are based here in the U.S., and so I would be remiss if we did not chat a little bit about Team USA. Yes, they don't have Paolo Banchero. They don't have Jalen Suggs, both players that I think are possible to join the team in the 2026 Olympics in Los Angeles. Jalen Suggs is in the program, kids. I think, if Drew Holiday ages out, if Derek White has aged out, they need a defensive stopper. Jalen Suggs, I think, would be an excellent addition to Team USA. Wouldn't surprise me if he is in the pool. If he continues developing the way that we're seeing him develop. Would not surprise me if he and Herb Jones are in the pool for the World Cup here in 3 years. But let's start with this then. Team USA has not looked impressive in their 5-game exhibition run. Some of that is absolutely the rest of the world is caught up. These are legitimate teams now. And, this we can we should know this by now, especially since the U.S. lost in the World Cup last year. But the U.S. cannot just load up with talent, show up and win. And that should have been obvious after 2004 and the way they lost in Athens. The Redeem team obviously changed some things and reinvigorated the program. But we're going to get very close to a point now where it's not a guarantee that the U.S. is winning a gold medal every year. We're getting closer and closer to that point because, frankly, Team USA's best player is a 39-year-old forward from St. Vincent St. Mary's High School in Akron, Ohio. this is the problem with Team USA. I'll be honest. I'm been critical of the Team USA program for a long time now. I think they were at their peak during the Coach K years when they got the 3-year commitment from players, when they got players to show up for the World Cup, to build a team year over year over year. The problems we're seeing with Team USA, and they solved it obviously in the 2021 Olympics when they lost to France in the opening game and they came back and won the Olympics. I give Greg Popovich a lot of credit. He had a very short time with his team. Some of his players did not join the team until the first game in Japan, in Tokyo, because they were playing in the NBA Finals. Greg Popovich, I thought, did a very good job having the big picture in mind and understanding that the canvas he had to paint with and painting on that canvas. The Team USA should be a team. And the problem that we saw in each of the games, to be perfectly honest, whether it was the first half against Canada, fourth quarter against Australia, Serbia, they played well. I'll give them the Serbia game. Played really well in that Serbia game in Abu Dhabi. But the whole South Sudan game, the whole Germany game, they are not a team yet. They're a collection of individuals still trying to figure out how to play with each other. You can see that in some of the turnovers they're making. You can see that in how they don't quite trust what they're doing defensively and when to attack and when to blitz. You can see that in the half court where there's a lot of standing around. And they're still trying to figure out how to execute for each other and make the right pass. Sometimes there's overpassing. Sometimes there's not enough passing. Sometimes there's too much one-on-one. It's a mess. And that, to me, is to be expected when a team has only been together for 2 years. And frankly, a team has been together for 2 weeks, for 2 weeks and doesn't have years of experience. You look at the Germany team that stood across from the U.S., that team has been together for at least 3 years. We've watched this team develop over the last 3 years as Magic fans, interested in Moe Wagner and Franz Wagner and saying, oh, these are our guys, let's watch this team. So many Magic fans are in love with the German national team because we've seen them grow up year over year over year, and everybody knows their role on that team. When they show up and put the German jersey on, they know exactly what they're doing and they can anticipate what each other's going to do. They know the expectations. They know the system. They know each other. That's not Team USA, and that's the deficit Team USA is playing at. But let me be clear about this. Team USA is still the heavy favorite to win the gold medal. They're the most talented team. They're the deepest team. They are heavy favorites to win this thing. But what they're missing is that cohesion. They're not in sync. They're not together yet. And that's the big ticket. That's the big thing that we have to keep an eye on, that we have to be aware of, cognizant of, is that they don't quite yet know how to play together. Now, will that develop over the next 2 weeks? I don't know. They'll get to the medal round. They'll get to the knockout round. And we said this even last year in the World Cup, like the U.S. looked really good in the group play. And we're like, okay, now let's put some pressure on them. Let's go to the knockout rounds. And the U.S. ran into some trouble there. But they got to get on the same page. At the end of the day, though, beating Team USA is still incredibly difficult. Beating Team USA still requires that you play a really good game. You got to make threes. It's the big thing that kept Germany in the game despite their poor shooting throughout the game. But Germany also fell in love with their threes and started taking too many. And they fell very three happy at the end of the game in a tie game. And those long misses led to long rebounds that got the U.S. out and running, that made the game helter-skelter. U.S. is going to thrive in games with hectic pace. South Sudan almost got away with it, but it probably also kept the U.S. in the game a little bit. But you got to make your threes. You can't turn the ball over. You can't let the U.S. get out and run. You got to make the U.S. execute in the half court because while they have a ton of talent, they're not together. They're not running super complicated stuff because they haven't played together enough to know how to run super complicated stuff. And so to me, when I look at this USA team, I don't see a team. I see a collection of individuals. They're trying. They're trying to be a team, but they don't have years of built-up experience together. And that's the advantage all these other international teams have. That's the advantage that these other teams possess. And that's the advantage that could upend the U.S. at some point in this tournament. Like I said, I am not betting against the U.S. winning the gold medal. They're far too talented. We saw LeBron take over at the end of the game against South Sudan. We saw him take over at the end of the game against Germany. LeBron's going to assert himself as the alpha and hopefully keep everyone in line and manage this team to get them over the finish line and win that gold medal. And he's LeBron freaking James. He can do it. At 39 years old, he can do it. But very clearly, despite the talent, despite the star power, despite the names on this USA roster, they are beatable. It will still take a great effort, but beating any good team takes a great effort. But they are beatable. And the age of the U.S. just sending stars over and not a team over, those days are over. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, you can check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today for Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we will chat lessons we learned from Summer League. So we'll do one more Summer League episode recapping what we learned from Summer League. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.